And now the stage is set for match 3 for today. Let's welcome Crazy Raccoon!
This team has been godlike throughout since their formation, since their inception. Taking a loss against Nightmare earlier on, it was just insane. No one predicted this, and now the demons in the lower bracket, they're going to be scary to face up against.
And now on the other side of the battlefield, please welcome Virtus.pro!
#1 seed in EMEA, and it is because they had a flawless run in stage 1 of the OWCS. Now they've got that behemoth of an APAC team before them. So can they do something that we have all thought impossible? Maybe it is going to be this squad to prove just that.
Intimidating match for VP. They're obviously not coming into this one as the underdog, the upper dog. They're definitely coming in as the underdog. The upper dog, obviously the opposite of underdog. Yeah, VP, what have they learned though? What can they take away from the match that they just got to watch from Crazy Raccoon?
Ooh, I think that the big thing that they can take away was Nightmare, I think, really focusing in on the bans in the back line for the side of Crazy Raccoon. It really shifted their approach to a lot of the compositions that we were seeing over on Kings Row and New Queen Street, changing the way that Crazy Raccoon had to approach those maps.
Yeah, I think, look, also what happened in that series was Zera just kind of different Heesang. Is Heesang having an off day? Is he being a little bit quiet for Crazy Raccoon? I think that's probably where you put your main focus. Jaewoo is going to be able to do that, though. Jaewoo is an absolute beast on Virtus.pro, like definitely the standout rookie of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, for Jaewoo as well, I think struggled a little bit in that once again series, but I feel like maybe that was a little bit to do with the fact that once again was just as scary as they ended up being, very close to being able to take it to Team Falcons. But this Virtus.pro roster, it's not just Jaewoo that you have to be afraid of. I think this particular backline of Virtus.pro is also one that you cannot underestimate. Alari from Gala, just being able to have a very stable Brig or Lucio in this backline as well as being able to play double flex makes this team an ultra threat.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen VP on different compositions throughout the last stage. Do you feel like they can take a mirror comfortably? Do you feel like they have to throw something a little silly in there in order to get a momentum there?
Yeah, I mean, look, VP can, their backline especially, hyper flexible. Like, I want to see Alari, I want to see hard poke from Vestola as well. But like, it can work. Crazy Raccoon, they've already got beaten down once. Can they make it a second?
Well, we know now that they can bleed, but I feel like they bandaged up and they're ready to fight again. They are fighting for the tournament. Live Crazy Raccoon going up against VP. You don't want to miss it. So, of course, we're going to bring in the big guns for that one. And Mitch and Matt are standing by.
Throw me a quick flex there, Matt.
Yeah, the big guns. Yeah, the big guns. Yeah. So he said, wow, that was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely meant it too.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, for sure. It's not everybody going delirious late at night.
No, it's like the middle of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hangzhou, of course.
I find this match fascinating from the standpoint that this would actually be really disappointing for VP, and I think EMEA as a whole, right? Because what? They beat Alcatia, they sent Alcatia home, and then otherwise they can't beat any other region, right? Like, it's a bit of a flub here from EMEA if you get a loss here. But Crazy Raccoon on the other side, very difficult to beat.
It's going to take a lot to salve the indignity, I think, of being knocked down to the lower bracket for a team like Crazy Raccoon, going from North America's #1 seed now over to EMEA's #1 seed. Two teams, though, that are so vastly different in play style.
Yes.
Crazy Raccoon have to reset themselves now for a very different foe.
And quickly overlooking, looking through the bans here, right? So it'll be the Diva that is banned by Crazy Raccoon early. So that is a hero that Vestola is obviously piloted to great success. And then, like Ash mentioned, still VP attacking that back line, right?
Ooh, Lip! Oh, you've got to respect this, playing so close to the front line here. Jaewoo's able to get in there and just emerge right under the Symmetra. Junbin falls down here, and Virtus.pro love to play this brawl style. This is really the perfect battlefield for them to begin this series on.
They're totally fine playing this type of style. And for VP, attacking that backline, right? If you're gonna play a lot of different things in your backline, right? Shu and Torong so good as a duo. You get rid of that Lucio, right? Takes that speed out of the game, and then you can play this like Ramatra type of setup. That VP is totally comfortable doing.
Wholesale changes though for Crater Raccoon, now going over a bit more of a dive look with Hisang on the Farah. This might provoke a change from Virtus.pro, but for the time being, they're going to try and make this composition work for them. VP now up to 24%, and Junbin's trying to hide back around the corner. A barrier thrown up here. He's trying to be a nuisance in the front line. Jaywoo's in with a Bionade, and that's scary though, to deal with the Venture in the front line, and Lip on the way out. Jay was able to find one. A drill rush to gain some height, but eventually Chorong is able to bring the Venture down. Amidst that fight, there was a flip. Somehow VP positioned off the point for long enough for Crazy Raccoon to reassume control.
Yeah, they disengage their VP, right? And they end up giving up the point, but on a comeback, they're not able to end up flipping it back. They're going to lose a few players here. Just try and not get staggered out. Back to spawn as Vestola will use that Nemesis form, get that power block up, make it out with his life. So here for VP, an opportunity, right? The Deadeye maybe create some space as you kind of move on in. And then after that, you're looking at a big orbital array potentially from Gala.
So an opportunity for Virtus.pro to take stock of things now as the score draws even. Deadeye here for Shockwave, really only looking for some damage, and Junbin does chunk him a little bit, but a nano boost now over towards the Winston means that Junbin remains fighting fit. A Bionade connects onto Vestola here, he's getting close to an annihilation, but will have to fight without it for the time being. Orbit Array expires and Shockwave gets picked off. It's a tough ask for the Cassidy to handle the Farah on any map. Jaywoo might have to do the heavy lifting in terms of damage in this fight, and he just can't get there. Hisang finds yet another DPS foe, and this annihilation comes a little late in the day, not backed up adequately by support.
And I was wondering maybe if there's like going to be a change here for VP, right? That annihilation comes really late. And this is a very difficult situation. Okay, so it will be a change. I'll play Maga. This is a very difficult situation, like you alluded to, for Shockwave to be playing into, right? Farah, Winston on the other side. Winston can obviously cycle through, whether it be a Nano from Shu, a Primal Rage here, or Junbin available, and then also the one-shot capabilities of Lift. It's really difficult to play a hero like Cassie without any mobility into this.
And there's no way Junbin's playing like that if he doesn't have a Primal Rage available. Virtus.pro perhaps should have had a feeling for it. But they're going to see the ultimate drawn out of the enemy tank player, and they are going to be decimated. And the consensus up until this point was that the Ramatra comp tends to fare pretty well into Winston in general. But Virtus.pro are playing mystery heroes right now, trying to come up with an answer, or at least get back to the point in time. Vestola staggers to try and keep his team in the game, but is going to be brought down.
And I wonder if you swap off of the Cassidy, right? Just some stagger here towards the end. This will be a round for Crazy Raccoon. I wonder if the answer is swapping off, right? Can you have Vestola play like a Maga and maybe with like a Sojourn in the mix, right? Because with that Cassidy, there's no way you're even going to escape the Winston, right? The Winston's going to leap on you. It's not like the Sojourn, right? You have like the double dash you could like perk into and select into, so you have the more escapability. But without like a Lucio to get a boop and speed out of the way, right? You're just kind of a sitting duck there on that Cassidy.
We saw how Crazy Raccoon struggled against what Nightmare threw at them, right? Often the hazard comps that gave them a lot of trouble. Virtus.pro were not the kind of team that we have seen really go in that direction very often, but perhaps there was some learnings to glean from that previous series the Raccoons played, and perhaps that's informed this composition here for Virtus.pro. Vestola looks like he's going to walk out on the hazard, of course, with this Brig Juno. Let's see how it plays in the hands of the European squad.
I think this is a much better composition for VP, right? Jaywoo on the Tracer can put a lot of pressure onto Lip, Hisang as well, and then also it's a lot easier to keep Shockwave alive and impactful in these fights.
Jaywoo here just wants to be a bit of a harrying threat, but Junbin's already brought Fixer to bear. He's going to try and wrap around, and Jaywoo, while a standout here, at least over this map so far, has not been able to make the difference for Virtus.pro. Losing Vestola here, not a good sign for the Bears.
Just a really easy fight there for Crazy Raccoon. Open things up. I mean, you lose the Brig right away. The Brig is supposed to be that line of defense for like the Juno in that regard, right? And you end up losing the Brig right away, and then everything's just going to start falling apart. This really, outside of the initial fights, Virtus.pro's been pretty lifeless.
Can they start to make an impact here? Again, that pressure from Jaywoo is going to be ever present, but Lip doesn't seem to be too bothered by it for the time being, especially with Junbin more than happy to address the Tracer threat, because he doesn't have a lot of frontline pressure to deal with, and the hazard will try and circumvent him most of the time anyway. Vestola's gotten over towards the point though here, and you can see Lip peering in from the outside, sees a Bionade of Vestola and Jaywoo duo, the latter who gets brought down. Fixer desperately has to try and jump away, but he's really got nowhere to be, nowhere to go, except down.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to get Crazy Raccoon above 50% on the point, right? He's saying every time we've been on board, I don't even know if he's died on the far, right? Just completely uncontested. And I think it's because they're obviously trying to deal with the pressure that Junbin's putting down, Shu landing some bios as well on that follow-up, that you're not even afforded the luxury of putting pressure onto the far in the sky. It's just been a masterclass here from Crazy Raccoon early on, and bad sign for VP.
Yeah, Shu gets to be here on this Ana. Pretty devastating stuff, especially when he's backing Junmin up most of the time. It's going to be a mobile barrage from Heesang. On the move, he's able to take Vistola out of the game, and now he's going to be hunting for more. Virtus.pro try the hazard look. Try, I guess, a third different option here on this map, and it still hasn't got them within striking distance of Crazy Raccoon. This is worrying signs, I think, for the rest of the series.
Well, this is a team that was dominant in EMEA, right? Like, they were fantastic, like undefeated, #1 seed, kind of cruised their way on through. And here at this event, right, they lose to once again, and then now they kind of beat out Cassia, come into this match. And this start is nowhere near what they try to probably envision.
And there's no point even talking about old economy here, as good as it is for Crazy Raccoon, because fundamentally they're just so far ahead of the curve here.
Yeah.
Primal Rage going to be used by Junbin. He creates a decent amount of space over towards the bridge side, keeping Virtus.pro out of the fight. Crucially, Shockwave, with that overclock, is not able to get in position to have that impact. And Lip does not care. Caught inside the downpour, but going to be healed up. It is Shu's attention fully focused on that Sojourn, though. It means Junbin doesn't have the healing to get to the burst damage of Jwoo's Pulse Bomb. Again, it's Jwoo standing up for Virtus.pro, and they do have some time now in the sun.
VP does have to use absolutely everything, though, to be able to flip that point. 99 already here for Crazy Raccoon. So all it's going to take, right, is Lip. He has a railgun charged up, comes around the corner, maybe lands that one, pops it overclock, kills the target right away. You get a player advantage, and it's GG.
He's looking for a way in here. He really only has to worry about Shockwave. There's no Ana on the enemy side to worry about. And as Lip falling. Good start here. Spike Guard going to be accounting for that kill comfortably. Vistola here with a Bionade, though, needs to try and about face. Get out of there. He's going to pressure him down, though, from the air. And Virtus.pro lose their tank. Not where they want to be right now, especially when Junbin wants to continue to apply the pressure. And the thumb screws are getting tighter. Yeah, well, careful, Jwoo. Not even on your best day do you want to face Shu like that. Shockwave and Junbin able to clean up, and that will trigger out overtime. Vistola might have the mobility to get here. Jwoo also is alive for the time being, but it feels like it is a short-lived affair. A very healthy Vistola on the point, though, means that this gets dragged out a little bit longer, but a barrage should account for the bulky hazard. And now leave Jwoo, the last player in the sights. VP have the reinforcements they can try and touch here, but they are never going to be at a full 5 at this rate. And that's the overtime expiring. First map comfortably in hand for Crazy Raccoon.
Yeah, in that last fight, Junbin jumps in, and he actually just kind of takes position over by that pillar. And Vistola's playing the corner, and he knows Vistola can't really chase because he's going to turn his back, they're going to cross the bridge. But he can't exactly challenge the bridge, right? And even though they end up losing Lip early on, it's a bio grenade from Shu that comes in, connects with 2. Vistola has to use his leap to get out. He's not able to do so. And Junbin just creating that much space just by occupying that area by that pillar allows him to just move in with ease. It's something that VP, I mean, there's not a lot of great options for them to fight that there. But now I think this raises a lot of questions for the rest of the series. Like, how, after seeing that, what are the advantages VP can force?
We don't dive too much into this, but it is a diva ban in that first map. So yeah. Vistola again is being targeted, which has been commonplace in matches that have featured Virtus.pro.
But in theory, VP should be pretty good at Ramatra and Maga, 2 heroes we've seen them excel at in the past, right? Especially if they're just going to play Winston on the other side.
And they roll out a composition that we often see on, Samoa Volcano, right? That has like that Victor, that bulky frontline that is Ramatra, can be sort of interchangeable with the Malga. And it looks really good against that like flimsier frontline of like the Symmetra and the Orisa. Yeah. But the Pharah is such a big problem for that setup, and Cassidy doesn't give you enough equity, I think, in that matchup at all.
Yeah, and I think you can say the Cassidy, right? Like, if you want to argue it, right? The Cassidy in this point on Control Center, right? The sight lines are really good for Cassidy. Like, the effective range kind of plays exactly into, like,
Pharah can get air in that middle room, though, right?
Yeah, and especially when you're moving in with the Cassidy without, like, a Lucio speed to kind of, like, shepherd him around, get him in position. You're just kind of walking into all this poke damage. And once they end up making the adjustment here, Crazy Raccoon, there was just no turning back.
And I think the consensus is that a lot of the time you want to see a Sojourn or even an Ashe to try and answer the Pharah. But if you look back at the Korea matches, right, in OWCS Stage 1, on this map, on these control maps, it is a Pharah ban. Like, Falcons will ban Pharah against Crazy Raccoon on this map because they divined that Heesang is the biggest threat, that Farah, something they can't answer. When Heesang's forced onto Echo, it's been felt that it's a bit more manageable. As good as he has been, but it was posited by our friends on the desk that it might be a little bit of an off day for Heesang's Echo, but he gets the perfect game to warm himself back up. Just gets to walk to Farah out there and cause problems for VP.
And if you're VP, so you start to look through the map pool, like what do you do with bans? I think like if you take the Ana away, right, then remove some of that Winston that we just kind of see. Like you have a Winston ban, right, that you could end up using, but you could also use that Ana to make it a little bit harder for them to play Ball or Winston, right? You know, you can play Ball with like maybe some Zen comps. You got to get a little bit creative, but curious to see where VP takes us.
It's been a bit of an oversimplification in how, you know, we've talked about the comparison between NA and EU, but in general, Europe haven't been trying to go for a lot of those like main tank strategies, like the Winston-based setups. That's also why we actually saw Tread come in and play a lot more for our Katsia, for example, over Ziad, because they realized the ping drops, it's a bit of a Winston meta. We've got to try and make that work. D.Va can have equity against it, can have options, but when you're banned out, Vistola on Winston is just not a pick we see at all here. It's just, no, I haven't seen it for a long time at least.
Yeah, but, okay, so you can't play the Winston, but Vistola, we know, is a very good Ramatra, a very good Maga. Like, there are, you can't just say, like, oh, well, they banned D.Va, we're chalked, right? They just get gapped by Farah,
those comps.
Yeah,
Gaps.
they do.
It's just brutal. I mean, they can't really interact with Farah, and then you basically put the onus on your DPS, your hit scan DPS to control it.
So would you say the kind of flub there is maybe not banning the Farah for VP, right? They get rid of Lucian. Like, you could have banned the Farah there, right? Like, they banned the D.Va, you ban the Farah. Look, maybe you're a little bit more on even footing.
I think if Smash is looking at the VODs, honestly, and like I'm sure he has, right? But
yeah,
you know, that's definitely what has been targeted in the past on this kind of map. But you can throw that out to a great degree because going forward, you can't be banning D.Va again, right? You know, like Virtus.pro have the options to look at the Ana. If there is a Farah map, you can, but I think your window for banning her probably has passed you by.
All right, so we do have Max coming in here for Junbin, so will be a change in the tank role. This is something we see Crazy Raccoon do pretty often in terms of flexibility with these two.
Yeah, I mean, it gives them, I think, like that more brawl, like, you know, tailored style, right? Yeah. This is something that Falcons no longer have available to them. For example, right? They obviously used to have Smurf. They could sort of rotate him in. Now it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Heading over to Circuit Royal, a bit more of a brawl style. This is, and I want to be clear to everyone, about as good as it gets for VP. It's also a map where you don't have to waste a Winston ban.
Right.
You can look at something else and maybe say, we don't want to deal with the Ana. But Crazy Raccoon are probably just going to ban Baptiste.
Yes, this is as close to a, like, massive, I mean, this is like a massive advantage for VP probably in the fact that, like, they love Circuit. You get it first ban as well, right? They will get rid of Genji, so this you know, gives you an opportunity here to ban BAP, right? That takes away like some of the Sigma comps. Okay, so it looks like they were hovering that, but maybe it's a Zen ban here for VP. So, okay, so it is Zen. It is not Genji. We saw Genji pop up, but that is Zen. So they get rid of Zen, which is quite interesting.
So you can telegraph that VP are not necessarily trying to play a shield tank that's Sigma.
It also blocks a potential BAP ban, right?
Yes.
We saw them get banned out on the BAP yesterday, and that definitely on Circuit as well, and that definitely impact them, right? So you eliminate that support from the queue. So it will be Crazy Raccoon following that up though with a Genji ban. So this is also, I mean, like the VP would play some Genji, right, at times, but I think this is like it's not terrible for VP.
VP like, get Circuit, they get to keep Baptiste in their composition.
Right. Banning, having the BAP gone would be a massive L for VP, where Genji being gone, like, it's more of a nice to have, I think, of what they would like to do.
Sure. Yeah, Genji, because gives way to, on this kind of map, I guess the Tracer, it can get pretty uncomfortable sometimes trying to round that first corner and play close to the coastline, as we sort of call it. To try and wrap in. It also opens up the opportunity for a couple of the different like hit scan options. Lip's hero pool is kind of weird. At this point in Overwatch, I think you know, like we've seen the Soldier 76 from him in those ball comps in some maps. We've seen him, you know, kind of made his name on the Sombra, but that was back when she was a very different looking hero. We know, like, you know, does Lip end up picking up like a conventional hit scan and just like deliver a Sojourn game that would be reasonable? And we've seen the Mei come up here on a couple of maps. I actually think Virtus.pro liked to do that. Jaywu was playing a lot of Mei here. And I think the idea is that wall does give you some space to sort of
regroup. They played like Tracer Mei yesterday when we watched on this map. Yeah.
So I'm fine with it. It didn't look good for VP. The Mei walls looked like it gave like the Sigma some time to get cooldowns back up and you know, get topped up. But
Yeah, as we'll take a look here with Crazy Raccoon on defense here. Kicking things off, they will play a Sigma-based composition. Interesting enough, they actually won't combo it with a bat, but Shu's so good on the Ana, and obviously making really big impacts with those bio grenades. You'll keep him in the game, and they actually will play a Mei of their own. So curious to see, yeah, Jay will actually match the Mei. So you'll have the Meis being mirrored here, and they will opt for a Ramatra-based composition into this.
Okay, so VP not going for a Baptiste either, which is obviously curious, but with the Mei, they might want to brawl a little bit more around that orbital ray, and I just think it's hard to go away from the bring in so many of these situations. But here comes VP regardless. We'll play that poke game early and wrap that first corner. The offensive Mei will gives them a bit of a screen here to gain some free progress.
He's just going to push them back a little bit. I think Crazy Raccoon just has to be a little bit worried, right? You don't want to allow Vestola to kind of cross that gap and get behind that Sigma shield, but you can't play extremely passive. Jay-Woo hit with that bio grenade. Shockwave takes a ton of damage here as well early on.
Decent progress made for Virtus.pro without really having to commit, which is a good sign, but at some point, the rubber has to hit the road here for Crazy Raccoon, and they need to find a way in. He's saying caught inside the vortex now, forced to give even further ground now as the kinetic grasp is thrown up. This is Vistola's opportunity to start to come forward. He knows it. He's saying over the top, though, able to find Fixer there with a right click, and that has to be addressed here now. Crazy Raccoon have their Mei in the eye of the storm, and he's saying he's able to find yet another kill. Great opening here for CR, and they follow up on it beautifully.
It is a lot of space, though, given up by Crazy Raccoon, right? You obviously don't want to brawl out with that Ramatra, but they just kind of fall back and fall back and fall back. That it is a lot of payload progress gained here by VP early on. So although Crazy Raccoon does get a fight win, does get a hold, still with over 2 minutes on the clock, pretty good rundown there early on here from VP.
There's a real game of chicken here between the Sigma and Ramatra. Max wants to hold the accretion for when Vistola tries to pop Nemesis form and walk up on him. And then try and get good value out of kinetic grasp outside of that. You might look to try and take the perk that gives you the lower cooldown and accretion to have more stopping power against this Ramatra if you need it. But here comes a gravitic flux from Max. He's caught Gala inside of it. Looking for some follow-up damage, but Gala benefit from some of the vestigial healing from that orbital ray. Vistola, though, is still going to fall. Crazy Raccoon are getting a ton of value out of this poke comp, showing us dimensions to what they can offer as a team with the substitution of the tank, and frozen stiff is Max. Choronki is holding on the orbital ray. Pops it now, but it's a little bit too late to save Max's life. Liv's going to try and follow up, though, at least with this overclock, and getting rid of Gala's a great start. He's going to deal with the brig front and center, but Fixer doesn't have the backup.
Yeah, you have an orbital ray used there for Crazy Raccoon in combination there with the overclock and even with the rally running for VP. It is not enough to keep them alive, and now this is where it starts to get dangerous, right? It was a really good start for VP in terms of getting the payload progress all the way to the distance, but now you're below a minute, and then you have to make some changes. And Max actually comes out on a Ramatra of his own. So
he probably doesn't feel like he can get enough space on the Sigma on this part of the map. So play something that's obviously just going to match Vistola's ability to plunge into the front line.
An Ana pick here for Gala as well. So you have a change in the back line here for VP.
The Mei wall's way more relevant now. Catch out an enemy Ramatra with that one, and you are in good shape for the fight, but he's able to win the dueling, and Shockwave on the left. That is a massive pick. Vistola sees an opportunity now to come forward with the Annihilation, but Liv gives him the respect he deserves. Vistola, though, will still clear the room. Hesan gets brought down as Gala, obviously switching over towards the Ana, is able to have way more long-range potential. Max, of course, has only just switched to the Ramatra, so Annihilation's not really on the cards. And Vistola threatens to grind him to dust, but he's able to survive. Throw up a shield, get the healing. Crazy Raccoon still in numbers at defending.
If you're Crazy Raccoon, though, you just need to keep Max alive long enough to get this nano boost, and
but it's the Mei wall.
Not able to do it. It's a nice Mei wall there that splits him off. Hesan and Genko, though, still feel like this potentially is winnable. It's going to be a blizzard that comes on through. Chorong also gets the benefits of the nano.
Choronki here into the fight, sees Fixer. There's just far too much to look at right now. And you see, if you're playing Sigma there as Max, you're probably less worried about the Mei wall. You're probably playing far back enough that you aren't going to get caught by it, but when you opt into the, mirroring the duel, you've got to have extra awareness about the potential to be trapped away from your team.
And now Vistola will play the Orisa, so Orisa can also brawl out a little bit with that Ramatra, and then also Orisa really good at taking that space, right? Spear spin, fortify, being able to get
for a time.
For a time, yes. becomes, no, not exactly glass cannony, right? But once you use those cooldowns and you don't have them, you're kind of screwed.
You don't have the ability to garner attention, or at least clear the area around you. So Pistola's going to be pretty judicious about those cooldowns now as he moves up under Fortify. Here's Max, that's not good. Okay, knocked to the low ground. VP know is going to be coming up behind them or up the stairs, and Max, at least with the speed boost, he's able to get in position once more. Getting taken pretty low now in Nomad form is going to fall to the disruptor shot of Shockwave, and Lip has to give ground. This Orisa is too scary. She's gone golden, and she's going to shepherd the cart forward. Crazy Raccoon are going to commit an orbital raid. They want to try and take the fight. Pistola caught on the other side of his own wall. Doubles back now to the rest of his team as Virtus.pro have a nano on their Orisa. Pistola's in the thick of things, but does get caught sleeping without a fortifier available in advance. He wants to push up, and yet again, another wall in his way. Terra Surge, Shu tries to get around the corner. It's going to be Lip that gets caught out, though, desperately healing. Coming in for Heesang. Max now has an annihilation. An instant ice block being used here by Jaewood, but eventually he's going to have to face the music and Shockwave. Picked off by Heesang. And inch by inch, Crazy Raccoon are working their way back into this fight, but they've got to stay on the card. Chorong goes low. Pistola's still healthy. He wants to push in the direction here of this Juno, but Chorong's getting healing from Shu in the background, and Heesang has the damage with Lip. They finally bring the Juggernaut and Pistola down, and VP have one last chance.
And they end up using the nano boost there onto Heesang because Max has the annihilation rolling on the Ramatra. Nemesis Foreign just blocking a lot of that damage. Chorong being so slippery, being able to hit, and Shu playing that on it, just able to heal at such a safe, effective range, never under threat.
That's why we were watching Chorong just not die.
Yeah.
With all that pressure on him, what a pick, that is huge. Getting rid of Lip there with a right click of the endothermic blaster is huge, but Jaewood knows he needs to provide more. Shu with a Bionade catches his opposite number out, so now the healing drastically reduced for Virtus.pro. Shockwave tries to make up with it with extra damage. It's going to be an overclock popped, and Heesang is barely able to stay alive out on the cart. Virtus.pro pick their spot well here. Crazy Raccoon probably don't have the durability to stall as
Nano for Shu coming up.
Can Max stay alive? He needs that nano, but it's just not going to get there in time. Shu can't develop it, and he's way out of the fight anyway.
Yeah, potentially that could have got interesting, right? Nano there for Shu onto Max. Max would have been able to stay alive. Shu also probably would have been able to stay alive for a very long period of time. You would have had some of these players coming off the spawn, but VP at the final stages yet again gets over the line there. Second checkpoint done here for Virtus.pro. It feels like to me, Mitch, though, like these tank matchups, and this is the type of style that VP would want to play against a team like Crazy Raccoon. I don't want to say they need a map completion. They got to get damn close, though, right? It feels like if they're going to win this map.
They're very short on time, though. Up to the high ground, they look to go again. Pistola is affected by the bionic grenade, but shrugs it off now, drops down. And Gala, he's saying finding these ridiculous picks. He's looking like Backbone out there with his main right clicks, man. It's crazy. Shu brought down, though, by the javelin from Pistola, and he's creating space on the cart now with a Terra Surge. Good damage dealt. Shu out of the game, of course. The Lip is struggling now. It's Heesang under intense scrutiny in this side room. He's trying to dodge away from his damage and gets his Ice Block cooldown available. Somehow, Chorong just pulled 2 kills out of his rear end. And Virtus.pro have the turn-tail.
And Pistola dies quite late there, and this is not a good scenario for VP to be pushing into. Blizzard available, Nano here, Annihilation. Everything lining up well for Crazy Raccoon.
He tried to block the doorway.
Yeah.
That was cute. Still Shockwave's able to get away and get a nano, but he might be frozen stiff. He's trying to work him down, but he's so durable, and he's being healed. Finally, he brings Shockwave down, and the Annihilation from Max got a lot of value. Pistola finally has a chance to play Diva, but it's the wrong time for it. It's too late, and Crazy Raccoon have brought the VP train to a screeching halt.
I guess for positives on the Virtus.pro side, right, is you were able to get that first and second checkpoint because at times it did look quite dire. But Crazy Raccoon, they set themselves up to be able to take a 2-0 lead in this series. And this is like perfect scenario for VP. These are the compositions that VP Bradley would like to play. They have a map that they're very comfortable on, right? But still, it doesn't seem to be enough.
It's kind of whiplash for Crazy Raccoon. If you think about the previous game and now this one, they've had to basically play completely different styles of Overwatch in order to sort of match their opponents. I mean, it's great to see they got the range, but we're looking for the efficacy, right? We're looking for the effectiveness in these different comps. That's not out of the question here, of course, as it's, look, a decent defensive effort from Crazy Raccoon. I feel like it's about on par for what we see from this map.
And this is what VP probably selects this map to really go to on defense. So it will be the Alari, BAP, backline. obviously extremely offensive focus. You're able to put that Alari turret like pretty high up on that building, and that's where like JWU can get a lot of the healing from, right? Playing around that corner, playing right by that turret. So we'll see if they're able to hold though.
It's kind of a style we've seen a few teams play in the past. ENCE used to do it a lot on this map last year.
Yep.
Like play those corners, play high. They even use Life Weaver to try and give Farah like a decent platform to play on. Make it so they don't have to touch the ground. Crazy Raccoon on the attack side here. Are they really considering this? Widowmaker here for Lip. This is what I mean about a bit of a weirder pool. He has an incredible Widow. But CR now go to their take on the Sigma comp, right? With Shu on the Ana is you wouldn't want him anywhere else.
So what's your your thoughts on this? So I actually kind of think this will be pretty effective for Crazy Raccoon because I think they're so well coordinated that they'll be able to eventually. You're banking on being able to get that Maywall and like burn Vestola down right through some of these like healing resources and whatnot before that Farah damage really becomes a nuisance, right?
Yeah, VP, what a longer fight. Enough time for Farah to really make it mark.
Yeah, and Vestola's hit with a bio.
Yeah, maybe too slow. I think like Crazy Raccoon need a pick sort of before JWU's able to strike gold like that. Vestola though does go down. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a pretty dirty one there. Gala might be stuck here, but he's able to AD strafe away from much of this damage. He's playing so far forward though. And Lip's able to finish the job from that off angle. Now VP, a little bit uncomfortable. This is very awkward because CR are going to stagger them here.
Yeah, and I mean, JWU just in the corner, just trying to end up playing his life, and this should be first checkpoint here for Crazy Raccoon. It kind of worked out in the fashion we were talking about, right? As Heesang puts a nice Maywall down, they get a bio onto Vestola, and they're able to take him out while he's playing the Sigma. JWU actually did get a kill there onto Shu at basically the same time, but losing your tank, I mean, it's just a brutal type of scenario, right? So now it's going to be Vestola going over to the Ramatra.
This is a weird comp.
I was going to say, it is very odd playing like Ramatra May with the Alari still in the mix. Like, I would have expected more BAP, to be honest, if I'm from
Yeah, and like Shu considered it at the start of this round, but never sort of stuck to it. And we thought yesterday when we saw VP, like, why are you protecting the Zenyatta there?
Well, especially because when we watched VP yesterday, they could have played this comp, but they just decided not to.
Right. Well, Blizzard there creates a lot of space for Heesang, and Lip is able to deal with Vestola again. Vestola's dying so early in these fights. Just the raw poke damage coming out of Crazy Raccoon's comp, which isn't like a dirty, sort of focused poke comp. It has a May in it. Heesang's able to put so much damage out there that it feels like you're dealing with double hit scan.
And what here, if you're VP, it's pretty late in the game to make some wholesale changes, right? Like, you're just getting your Captive Sun now for the Alari.
I mean, dude, you've got to get this around a Sigma Shield and a Kinetic Grasp. It's a little uncomfortable. Okay, here comes the overclock though. Vestola in a Nemesis form, and that's the timing you save the accretion for, right? Max had it ready, but Vestola was able to avoid it.
Doesn't hit anything.
Okay, Pop, yeah, didn't do it. How are you supposed to make it work against this comp? It's so difficult. Orbital Ray is just where it needs to be, but Lip has to clear the area for now. Heesang turns his attention towards Vestola, whose shield expires, but he has Nemesis form ready. Gala in the backline, running wild. It's Lip falling to Shockwave in the Sojourn duel, and Virtus.pro have done enough for now.
That was a fight. If they lose that fight, I mean, this map is over, in my opinion, as they absolutely needed that. And they get a lot of ultimates out from Crazy Raccoon. So VP, although 319, a lot of time here for Crazy Raccoon, VP gives themselves probably the best chance here.
And I'm pretty happy if I'm VP to lean into these 3 ultimates that are about to come online for the... Really suits this brawl style. You've got the 3 key ultimates for this comp. At your fingertips.
They'll match the Ram as well, right? So the only difference really is that Shu Ana versus the Alari, where, I mean, Shu's so good on the Ana.
Vestola's in an awkward spot. He has got the Annihilation. He was in with the bio. Able to shrug it off at the very least and keep fighting. Crazy Raccoon can respect this and actually have the ability to disengage. So they've drawn that ultimate out. Now the Blizzard is another issue. Can they get clear of this one? Heesang throws his own Blizzard into the fight and is brought down by Fixer instantly. And Lip has to have eyes in the back of his head virtually now, as it's a really uncomfortable angle to play from. With Shu out of the picture, it's done here for the attack side once more.
I'll say VP did a really nice job of keeping Vestola alive there, because the Maywall comes in from Heesang, followed up by the Blizzard, and he's got obviously popping Nemesis form, using that block to try and mitigate some of the damage,
nice
but
crosshair.
they're able to keep him alive throughout all of that. So huge plays there from Virtus.pro, as that knocks about a minute off the clock.
Gala now has a Captive Sun against a Ramatra composition. Much better than having to try and make it work against that Sigma setup. So that could be quite deadly. Shockwave here again doesn't have to commit from this position. A railgun here or there, find critical damage, something that can be followed up on by even the Iliari, or an insta-kill with a headshot like we've seen in the last couple of fights. This is VP slowing the pace of the game to a crawl.
And with that fight win, I mean, by the time this next one kicks off, you almost burn 2 minutes off the clock as Captive Sun.
Everybody splits.
Just looking for a target. Doesn't find him.
So that one out the window, but Orbital Ray is still here for Virtus.pro. They've still got a lot to work with now, and Heesang gets caught in the front line. Shockwave is playing these really tight angles, being very careful to stay out of Lip's line of sight. And this conservative approach to the Sojourn play is really paying off.
But it's 3 fights consecutively, right? It's Heesang dying first, then a kill from Shockwave on the Lip, and then Heesang early yet again, right? So VP's burned 2 minutes off the clock.
But Crazy
Relative
Raccoon
ease.
have now cycled into the power ultimates, Matt, the ones you want to look for. Max is getting in position for an annihilation, extends that Nemesis form time. Vistola going to try and reciprocate, but it's Shockwave getting caught out by Pulsar torpedoes, and that Blizzard might just be a little bit late. It comes in at least, allows for the pickup on Shu, but Chorong here is going to be on extra duty. Vistola tries to throw up the Dukes here, but he's going to be under extreme pressure. And with Gala taken out, it's like the rug's been pulled out from under the Ramatra. Crazy Raccoon spend heavily, and there's no guarantee they turn this into a checkpoint.
Right, you're going to get another fight for VP, right? So you have Jwoo switching over here to the Sim. That's going to allow them to like TP past the Maywall potentially. That comes into the mix. And then Vistola going over the Orisa.
Vistola gets the touch, there's the wall. Orisa on her own for the time being, and Vistola needs to stay alive. He's got to hang on. Eventually, Chorong has the damage to bring him down now, and Lip's got a pretty safe spot to play from. This is a very cheesy location to be as a Sojourn, but it's deadly effective, and Crazy Raccoon earn themselves the second checkpoint.
Yeah, Vistola just barrels around the corner, right? Just trying to get onto the point. He's hit with the Disruptor shot that sticks to him, follows him there with that Sojourn perk.
Just a rarer pickup for the second perk at the moment.
And then also just gets split off by a Maywall, so he just gets obliterated. Has to use all of his cooldowns right away on the Orisa, and now moves back over. Be the Ramatra and May yet again pick up for VP, but VP, they burn a lot of clock there, man. They actually give themselves a chance to hold here.
Heesang almost got caught there. Getting good damage down, but as soon as that bio expires, Virtus.pro surge ahead, force the ice block out. Good wall for Jwoo, gives him some room to disengage, doesn't catch any teammates on the wrong side of it either. Max is looking for more, but he's at risk of overextending here, forcing Jwoo down, but there's still the objective to pay heed to. That is on the move. One player on the cart right now. And there's a wall thrown up that doesn't do a whole lot for Jwoo. He's still going to be caught between a rock and a hard place, and the ice block clearly wasn't available. Virtus.pro gets split up, they're just in disarray, and Crazy Raccoon pounce.
Well, the biggest thing that VP has to their advantage is this high ground, but with Max and Co just rotating around that outside and forcing them down, they steal the high ground there from VP, and they end up taking the map.
No easy games from here on out for Crazy Raccoon, but they are a team that is bred for this purpose. Take down the very best in the world at their own game. Max comes in, opens up the option for some Sigma play, some flex to Ramatra. These guys are shapeshifters. They now take on the aspect of Virtus.pro, and they can handle VP. Look, we talked about it coming into this game. VP's best map, they protect the Baptiste or another flex support, we don't know which it was, and they still don't get there. If you're a coach, on this VP side, you're wondering what your options are supposed to be. This is your best foot you may have just put forward, and you're at risk of being eliminated from the Champions Clash.
Probably was. And I know we talked about how Jwoo used that Maywall to kind of separate himself from Max, but it's a really great decision from Max to just continue to push forward, right? Uses his Ramatra shield, it forces Jwoo down, and then you get an awesome position up on that high ground, right? Because now for VP, you're in this horrible position where they have control of that high ground in the window, firing down at the back of you. They also have players coming down. It's just a really nice pinch scenario there that allows Crazy Raccoon to end up getting the map win.
Some highlights here for you now is we did see like a Sigma mirror, but more often than not, VP were trying to switch out of it and play the Ramatra. They wanted to be the aggressor. They didn't want to sit back and try and hedge their bets on playing a poke game against this Lip Heesang duo, which has been deadly effective, especially the long-range play of the Maya. We've really been impressed with Heesang, how he operates on that coastline of the map. Really, really effective stuff. Shockwave was the one that I think really gets in the engine room for VP, starts to generate some of that momentum, finding huge picks.
Dude, it feels like, though, this is with VP getting this map pick, right, and using Circuit really early on, probably one of, if not their best selection option in the pool, right? With their ban first. I mean, think about the mountain they have to climb now, right? they have to win map 3, but then, you know, now it would go back to Crazy Raccoon's map picks and versus bans, and they have to run it back through there. Where you tie it up here, it gives your obviously a much better odds.
It's been an interesting tournament for Virtus.pro. You know, obviously they look pretty rough in the first 2 games, right? As best of 3s, they drop to the lower bracket. They are able to, you know, find a comfortable win and advance a little bit further.
Well, just really bizarre for EMEA because what? OWCS takes a map off of Falcons, right? And goes the distance. But then, like, VP loses to once again, but then VP smashes OWCS. Then if they come in here and lose, it's just kind of like all over the place.
Yeah. Odd one for them, and now they're basically on the ropes, folks. I mean, this is a first 3 game, and they've got to come up with an answer here. There obviously are some maps still remaining in this pool that would give you the option to play your style as VP, but we've seen a lot of teams in this position at international tournaments. We're losing in the mirror. Our best look is being beaten by a team that are basically playing the same style as us. What more choice do they have?
So you'd be looking at, I don't think you're going to see them go hybrid, right? I think it's probably Surabasa or one of the push maps. And then is there a world in which they ban the Winston first, right? That would potentially be an option. Do you do a Runasapi or a Surabasa, ban the Winston? I feel like if you do Surabasa and ban Winston, like, they would just play ball probably. Like, then they have no problem, obviously, playing the ball pick. And
I just don't think VP want to play against that map. I don't think they want to have to deal with it, because quite often the antidote to that has either been stack your team with like Cassidy's and Sombras and Briggs,
do you ban Ana and try and go that route, right? Take like, maybe you think the Ana takes both of their availabilities off the board, but
you can still play the Winston outside of that setup though. Like, you know, bring Lucio in here, of course. You got Kiri, Juno are all pretty reasonable options. King's Row is going to be the pick here for Virtus.pro. A map that I do think suits the D.Va style quite well, if that's where Vistola wants to go. This is why I was a little surprised we actually saw Circuit Royal picked. Now that the D.Va ban had gotten out of the way, I felt like that's kind of where VP might have liked to butter their bread, but they got a pick here. They got first ban as well.
And this is also a pretty terrible map for, like, ball, right? Like, ball, we don't see played that often. It will be a Fara ban here.
2 maps too late, but I'll take it.
And Crazy Raccoon can't play ban the D.Va, right? The D.Va for them was banned early on. Do they ban any of the other tanks? Do you look towards the
I don't know if this ban matters. I just don't know if it matters at all. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of this. We've seen a lot of this. I think what Gala's been playing it on occasion. I don't know how much it really matters, because we know Crazy Raccoon have got the kind of backline that can. I think their best look is like a Brigana, honestly. Like, if they get to play Winston, that's where you want Chorong and Shu to be in general. But looking at the Fara here, forcing Kingsung to play Echo potentially, or Tracer, as it may be the case.
But you've had such a difficult time.
Oh, man, I never forget that game.
Difficult time getting to Shu in the backline. He's been so good on the Ana, and now you're going to give him defense King's Row, where he can just be out in the middle of nowhere.
You don't play dive. Like, what do you pick Hanzo and shoot him in the head? Maybe, but you don't play dive. You might have a D.Va composition that, backed up with like a strong Tracer play, might give you the option. You try and pick Shu. I mean, Shockwave was able to do that a bunch on Circuit Royal, but it's not something you can really bank on.
Yeah, I wouldn't be gambling on that one. It's Crazy Raccoon here on defense first. They'll actually play a Kiri Ana setup here. At least it looks like on defense. So they'll continue to have Max in the game here to play the Sigma, as see how this kind of fares. As I'm curious what we see from Virtus.pro. VP, few different options here potentially to go with like a D.Va, right? They want to get to that high ground on offense. You'll have to circumvent, obviously the Sigma Mitch really good against that D.Va, right? You can kind of constantly chain these accretions, so it'll be VP actually starting off with the Ramatra.
It is so interesting to see a Sigma comp on this map, though. It's not a commonality. You are going to try and control the high ground, and VP don't necessarily have the mechanism to force CR down. Also be able to cleanse that bio off with the Suzu, pretty handy for Gala to have that available. And a Sim TP gets VP in position now to fight for this space. Pistola has Nemesis form and just plucks Heesang out from behind the shield.
Yeah, and the TP up to the high ground from VP is really what allows them to break this type of setup. So you don't play that D.Va, you still want to access this high ground, you bring in that Sim into the mix. Is really nice strat here from VP.
Now, you put some pressure on Crazy Raccoon, force him to drop with his Sigma. A little uncomfortable for Max, but he's got off angles that he's being backed up from. In theory, Lip is on that left-hand side of the back, but Vistola is apparently a counter for him as well. Great start here for Virtus.pro, and they like to slow roll these situations. Losing Fixer, not the end of the world, especially when the follow-up is good. Gala's getting involved with the kunai now, and it's just raw stall for Crazy Raccoon.
Yeah, he's saying Ice Block, stay alive for a little bit longer, but that will be it. So VP with a really nice read, a really nice strategy early on. That allows him to take that first point with an enormous amount of time. I mean, 5+ minutes.
Hefty time bank, but this is a treacherous part of the map to play. Crazy Raccoon over to the Lucio Ana. We'll see Shu with that and the Nano ready to deploy in just a moment.
And Crazy Raccoon wants to get quite aggressive, right? Bringing Lucio into the mix here tells you they want to use that speed, kind of collapse onto that back line. Maybe they feel potentially that they are quite vulnerable, as we'll see now a Kitsune rush available for Gala and Co. in the street. How he opts to end up using it is that it'll be Max opening things up with the benefits of the nano boost. Yeah, so they try and disengage, but they actually end up getting split here. So see Vistola gets pushed into the shop here. Gala actually end up using the Kitsune rush as they want to potentially try and fight this, even being a player down.
Yeah, I mean, Heesung ends up getting a little bit caught out. I think VP were able to disengage with 3 players, but Vistola was so deep. Gala gets in there, Kitsune rush, Suzu thrown down, Ramatra kept in the fight. Vistola's also holding on to an annihilation with positive tempo. Great signing for Virtus.pro. Shockwave doesn't have to set up shop on that off angle, but definitely has to put the fear in Crazy Raccoon of him turning up there at any time. And this sim is honestly still getting a ton of value in this part of the map.
It really is. Also, you have this wall to block potentially like any bios, right? As you'll have a Bob come in here
the
potentially.
Wall is so dirty.
From Shockwave, as this has been a speed run so far in favor of Virtus.pro. He's saying, I'll check the Blizzard in there, and that is just kind of thrown deep. Not going to result in much.
I guess he's coming in from the flank there and is hoping to catch, but Shockwave has a sixth sense about it and is already able to coach gun himself away. Some classy follow-up kills now, and that time bank is still looking pretty healthy, folks. 5 minutes here for Virtus.pro to play. Again, they've managed to set up a battlefield that really seems to suit them, and Crazy Raccoon are not succeeding in the mirror.
Seems like having that Baragon really impactful, right? You imagine the Pharah would be in play here. Shorong with a double kill on the Lucio as speed right on in. Able to do that off the rip.
Vistola's been playing pretty far forward, right?
Yeah.
It also happened, when they tried to disengage from the Nano Ramatra. Here again it happens. So Crazy Raccoon identify a chance for Chorong to use that speed boost and get them a player advantage locally. And it's pretty hard for Ramatra to get people's attention when he's across the map, right? Throw a vortex and that's it.
And now you'll have a match in terms of the Mei. So Jay will move away from the Sim, which we both thought was pretty effective. Curious what type of value you get out of the Mei here. Now, you still have the Ashe in play, which typically you would see the Ashe on defense is lit moving forward with the Nano and the Overclock. It'll be the Annihilation used here by Vistola, just trying to stay alive, a 1-for-1 trade, but typically we see the Ashe on defense.
Yeah, I mean, Lip was able to find himself, though, completely outside of the radius of that Annihilation. And we might see Shockwave, consider a switch here, over towards the Sojourn. I think he's realizing now that Crazy Raccoon are leaning into this Lucio look and taking these impulse bursts of speed. He needs a bit more mobility.
Well, the Ashe also with the benefits of the natural high ground on defense just naturally is way better, right? Playing on that low ground, there's not really as much of an advantage for the Ashe playing against the Sojourn there. So
yeah, and they switch off the Sim, so you can't cheese your Ashe up there now if you're VP. Onto the Orisa as well. Good at playing these corners, in fairness. Will dissuade Max from getting too close in many of these situations. There's going to be a Kitsune rush now to start the fight of Vistola again. Very quick to get into the front line. He's really become quite the aggressive tank player over his tenure. He's saying he has to try and double back for that health pack here and is holding onto a Blizzard. Should Virtus.pro overextend? For now, though, slow roll for the attackers. He's saying aware of players up there on the periphery, but he's focusing towards Shockwave in that backside. Sound barrier now means Crazy Raccoon can be that much more aggressive, so much so that Max makes the pilgrimage to the backline of VP. Pluck Shockwave out of their number. And that's a decent use of the sound barrier here, as Crazy Raccoon should be able to lean into another defensive hold.
Oh, it'll be a Blizzard here used by Heesung as well, as they want to get some of these players. They're just hanging out here for Virtus.pro as Dude, the aggression that Crazy Raccoon plays with there is kind of wild in the sense that they let Hisang be the one who kind of duels with Bestola on the payload, as Chorong uses the speed to just use Max like a battering ram towards that back line. We see it a little bit from Hisang's POV where they kind of go around that U with the Mega Health Pack and they just shoot towards Gala and Fixa. Deep splits off that back line from the rest of VP, but Hisang and the rest of Crazy Raccoon do a nice job staying alive, preventing that payload from moving forward.
Oh, man, I tell you, if Shockwave is in position to follow up on that javelin, that's a kill. Okay, awkward. Jaywu now trying to go for the Blizzard, doesn't at least get it deployed, but Shockwave is going to play away from it as Crazy Raccoon barely get caught up in it. And even if they do, the follow-up isn't really there. Gala down, Terra Surge used, but Vestola's getting booped around the place, buffeted on all sides by the frosty winds of this frigid defense. Crazy Raccoon more than happy to adapt to the Tundra.
And I feel like the faster the pace of play, the better this is obviously going to be for Crazy Raccoon. Is right there, now you lose that Blizzard, so Jaywu now goes over to Genji, right? It feels like we're just kind of playing mystery heroes a little bit from the side of EP, as now we're back to the Ramatra.
Max here doubles back, has an opportunity to throw a Vortex down. It's going to be yet another Kitsune rush here for Gala. Fixer holding onto the sound barrier. Vestola though can't get out of the Blizzard. It's devastating.
Oh, the beast.
VP spent everything, but Vestola is just around the corner. Line of sight block there for Fixer. He's going to wish he had that one back, but now with only a minute left to play, Virtus.pro are running low on options. Clearly, their nerves starting to depart from them, as Crazy Raccoon have gotten only more comfortable over the course of this round.
And that beats like a second or two light there from Fixa, as ends up dropping it. Vestola would already hit by the Blizzard, already basically dead. As this is massive though. Fixa over to the Zen, able to pick out Chorong, as Chorong playing quite aggressive. He's almost got beat, so massive pick.
Great option against Crazy Raccoon, who don't have a lot of backline pressure with their DPS. They can walk up with a speed boost like they've done in the past, but that's a scary idea, especially when your frontliner gets hit with a Discord Orb. Another great pick from Fixer. This is good for Virtus.pro now. They've generated some momentum. Hisang out of the game. Shockwave now going to double down with an overclock as Max's. This is how you do it. Without a Genji or a Tracer, your Ramatra has to be the dive.
And that was a sound barrier from Chorong. Didn't exactly catch to see how many targets it actually hit. I mean,
did it hit Max?
I don't even think so. I mean,
Max
was extremely low right away. It seemed like maybe that was kind of the idea, is to connect with that sound barrier onto him.
I love this
use
switch
it to move forward yet again.
Fixer hears that there's a Diva switch now and knows he can farm Inspire procs off of Max, so now comes out on the brig. Jaywu's dealt with Hisang now, the Tracer switch for Crazy Raccoon. They're trying everything to hold Virtus.pro off. The VP now, set up of their nostrils, they're going for it. They're going to play outside the Annihilation once more, and Dusty and Nano Jaywu coming in his direction. But Jaywu's not able to build a blade off that ultimate, so he'll have to go for it after the fact. Gala's ultimate now deployed. Jaywu still gets in the thick of things, and Shu gets picked off in the front line. Venture for Hisang. We've basically seen every hero in the game so far. Maxed out of the blade, Jaywu finally develops it and uses it to seal the deal.
VP, I mean, they get obviously this third checkpoint, but considering how much time they had, right? I mean, they take that first checkpoint, they have like 5 minutes on the clock. They get checkpoint 2, they have like almost 4 minutes on the clock, and then it gets dwindled down into OTs. I mean, it feels like so many hero swaps from both sides there towards the end of the game.
Oh, and we're trying to keep up with it, right? As the action is going. I think that's probably one of the few situations where the Zen switch makes sense when you're going up against a relatively slow comp without like a flanking DPS. And the strategy for Crazy...
flanking DPS.
Right, well, no, the flanking DPS is Max.
Yeah, with the assistance of Chorong.
Yeah, which is bizarre. So, I mean, I think Chorong's beat needs to hit onto Max there, but they are just using the Ramatra to run it down. Crazy Raccoon really embracing the rush approach to this Ramatra setup, and on defense, like you see, it pays off. Virtus.pro realized they couldn't really play that slow roll game they were looking to after a while. Now Crazy Raccoon go on the attack side. A Lip Echo would be a little... I would expect... You know what? We'll see.
Yeah. See what happens.
But
obviously,
you talked about the defensive Ashmat, and that's what Shockwave's looking for here.
Yeah, being able to kind of create that space, that high ground, right, on defense. This is where Ash can definitely shine. So you will also have that brig on a backline, like you were talking a little bit about, but more from the Crazy Raccoon side. But VP will end up running it.
Decent option, I think, if you're, maybe expecting Max to try the Diva again, or, you're dealing with Genji. All very reasonable. Crazy Raccoon don't have a Sim TP to assume high ground control for their Ramatra, so Hisang kind of has to go ahead and pave the way.
it's going to be like Heesang and like Shu potentially, right?
Oh, they just walk up. Just walk up. Oh, awkward from Stoller. Caught in the corner. And out of the backline, Max goes. This has been the modus operandi for Crazy Raccoon so far. But they've had to give Chorong up for this. So that's the speed that allows them to maneuver into such positions off the table.
That was really nice. It doesn't exactly work out in the end there for Crazy Raccoon, but we see it from Max and Chorong's POV. They get Max up to that high ground. Chorong actually speeds him around. And what's going on at that time is Heesang on the Genji is up in that opposite window. Gets a TP there from Shu, and that's how they try and collapse on that high ground. But VP able to live on through it.
It's looking pretty good here for VP. Having to sit back on this now. Shockwave is going to be pretty hard to pressure, especially with Crazy Raccoon going off the Genji. Now just really want to try and gum the works up with for Stoller. And a Mei wall to catch him out of the high ground could be the ticket. Notice how he'll probably play differently seeing this. Respects the pressure coming in, throws the Vortex down, knows that Max again has gone into his backline, and he can't do much about it. Going to get buffered around, is hoping for healing at some point, starting to call for it, I'm sure, but there's chaos in the backline of VP. And Vistola doesn't get the help that he needs there.
Well, I mean, Max just kind of speeds by him, and I guess the idea from Vistola potentially is like, they're not going to use the Maywall in that situation because they're also Maywalling Max off, right? From the rest of the squad. So if I can just occupy that space, but still just too much damage coming on through.
Still Virtus.pro though, having to come back into the fight. Chorong will go down. Vistola has to be coming off respawn pretty soon, and Nano over on the Mei. Might have been the ticket for Virtus.pro, but they're running out of time now. And Vistola's back in the fight, but losing your Ramacha at the beginning of this engagement is sometimes is too much to come back from. Once again, Max gets into the backline, ties him up, denies the resources from Vistola.
Yes, Crazy Raccoon can play with so much more pace here with that Lucio and the Kiri in the mix, right? Gala would use like the bio grenade, right? Maybe then you created a little bit of advantage there. It just gets Suzu'd off, and then you just kind of keep on moving forward there for Crazy Raccoon. And now, I mean, you stick with this Ashe here on defense. You still have some of that high ground, but you're going to have to make those like dynamites and just the overall damage, like the healing pressure, really make an impact. Yeah. Or else you might as well switch to the Soldier.
It's quite effective, I think, against the Lucio Kiriko. Yeah. They don't have great throughput, but you can Suzu that if you want to. It's an option.
Yeah, these kills come through so fast from Crazy Raccoon. I'm not exactly sure you can play like that.
Blizzard here. Vistola is already kind of committed to the fight now as Heesang going to deploy that one Shockwave caught just on the edges of it, and Heesang's able to bring him down now. Max, though, frozen solid. He tried to go for the Annihilation, and Blizzard is still the perfect counter to a Ramacha in that ultimate form. Nice fight for Virtus.pro. A huge stop here, especially with Crazy Raccoon investing Blizzard, beat, and the Annihilation.
Honestly, I was a little bit worried for Virtus.pro with how that started, right? Blizzard, Annihilation Bomb, Rally thrown in, and they get picked first, but the kill that's massive is the one onto Max. They get rid of Max, the sound barrier comes down from Chorong, not able to keep him alive, and that allows VP to flip it.
Vistola here, not quite sure where to find himself at the moment. Decent sideline still for Gala. Maywall thrown up as well by Jaybu. Liv just faults it, tries to take it, a very aggressive fight towards Shockwave. But Virtus.pro love to be the defenders in these situations. That Mega is not ready for Heesang yet, so he's very, very low in that side room. Shu desperately stretches himself thin to get there for his Mei, but Max didn't have the help he needed.
Starting to look good for VP, right? 2 fight wins consecutively. You can move up to this choke. You can start to control this area, especially with those Mei walls, right? Very difficult to dislodge the defenders from this type of position.
Stoller here wants to draw a front line pretty far forward, but Crazy Raccoon making an entrance from stage left. Pushing on in, Shu now going to throw a Suzu down to make sure that they're not hindered at all, but a nice Bionade comes out from Gala. He sees a Suzu used early and says, this is perfect for me. Virtus.pro with the player advantage, Gala under some degree of pressure, but Max just can't quite get to that backline yet again. Great fights here for Virtus.pro. Heads up from Gala.
Yeah, and Heesang chucks in the Blizzard there towards the end. I wonder if potentially a swap here from the Mei. Do you consider something else here? Potentially from Crazy Raccoon, as Shu will actually go and play Ana. So you'll ditch the Kiri, you'll play a Ana of your own. You're still going to keep that Lucio in the mix, and yeah, they're going to stay on this Mei.
All right, well, Jaybu's going to have a Blizzard ready in no time. Solar aware there's a disruptor shot behind him now. Vortex thrown down. Wall's going to block his retreat. Slept for the time being. Eventually, surely, they're going to do something about the Ramacha because Vistola is going to have an Annihilation here. Crazy Raccoon choose mostly to respect this overclock, but Heesang's got nowhere to go.
Yeah, he'd use a Vice Block already as well.
Great Mei War comes out. Heesang's still alive somehow, but Jaywo's going to commit a Blizzard now. And finally, the Mei is conquered. That's enough for VP for the time being. Crazy Raccoon need to wait until all their pieces are on the board.
Yeah, he stays pretty pushed up there, Heesang, and he gets hit by a shot when Shockwave's using that overclock, has the ice block, and then at that point, VP knows he's dead to rights, right? You can actually use that wall over by the choke. They blizzard him right. It's impossible to get that Mei out.
Blizzard over the top of the wall there. Vasola aware that Max is still working towards his backline. Tries to throw up the Dukes here inside that Nemesis form, but he is quite low. And Annihilation, he knows he has it, but he can't make use of it safely until now. Jamie was hoping to pepper him down with some of those ice spikes, but it's not enough. Max's Annihilation, though, is just disengaged from here for Virtus.pro, and Heesang is out of the game. Tries to come in on his vaunted Echo pick, but it's not enough to make a difference, apparently, as the whip shot accounts for him. Bayonade for Vastola, laughable here as he knows he can sit back, play his time, and sit on this big ultimate.
And you have the Annihilation Nano combination here for VP. Insane survivability from Vastola.
They've got everything. BT has to be used for Crazy Raccoon. It's time to go. Max is the one that gets the nano, and he's looking to the backline, but of course, the perk's there for Gala. He himself is nanoed. Bayonade thrown down on Max, and he's eventually able to finish him off with a force palm, but Shu and Heesang are out of the fight, and there's nobody to touch the cart. Good looks here for Virtus.pro. This is the kind of game they want to play. Slow, steady, bleed your opponent out over time. It's a war of attrition that the Bears know how to win.
Yeah, it's a type of playstyle that obviously suits them better, and we've seen them being able to play it over the last few maps, but this time here on King's Row, they're able to get a distinct advantage. And I think now, if you're VP, you're scrambling like, all right, what are we going to put together in this next map that's going to be able to get us to that 5th game?
The way that these teams use their Ramantras on King's Row is so vastly different.
Yeah.
Vastola constantly sees Max running at him and then running past him and says, that's not my business. I've got to try and keep the rest of this Crazy Raccoons team at bay. Virtus.pro loved having the fight taken to them. It seemed like they had great composure with this very aggressive Lucio Kiriko rush look from Crazy Raccoon. And that's Max for you. I think he's got some great brawl tanks up his sleeve, but the overall style here for Crazy Raccoon is not enough to rattle the Bears.
I would say there was a lot of times as well, like Heesang is getting picked off first on the Mei, right? Playing pretty aggressive, but that's also kind of what Crazy Raccoon wants to do. They want to play aggressive. They want to force VP to end up making mistakes. VP, though, slowed that pace down much better on the defensive side of things.
I feel like they have way more agency. Good examples like Gala sees like these early Suzus being thrown out by Shu. Maybe someone's getting slowed slightly or there's like dynamite damage on him. He Suzus, Gala goes, I'm going to throw a Bayonade on you instantly and make sure I get my value.
Do that bio sound effect again.
I can't believe I've made a Brox cheer on a broadcast at this point, folks. The late night delirium definitely settling in, but for Virtus.pro, that's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
They've secured themselves a map. But because they lost Circuit Royal, it's still nerve-wracking for them. Now they know they're facing down a Crazy Raccoon pick, and CR could go back to the well. So bring Junbin back in and maybe look for a more dive-centric map.
Yeah, I mean, what? You're going to go probably like a Runasapi Esperança here if you're Crazy Raccoon. They already did ban the Diva, right? Do you try and ban like Ramatra? Do you want to go back to that tank well yet again? Do you want to do... there's a few different options they potentially have where... Look, if you wanted to go to one of those maps and play Winston, right, you can either... Okay, so you might actually end up banning a tank if you're Crazy Raccoon because there's also the threat of VP banning the Winston if you go, like, for a DPS or a support right away. So, curious to see how they'll attack that ban.
Go take a break here, of course, for just a moment. Chance to breathe. We're going to head to our desk and break down the action right after the break.
Oh, Danny, never change. Bringing endless amounts of positivity, and that's the right attitude to head into something like that. Speaking of right attitude, VP showing some grit, getting one on the board here as well against Crazy Raccoon. That's gonna lift the spirits as a VP team.
Oh, it definitely is. I think it was massive for them to start up on their attacking side with the 3 checkpoints that they're able to actually secure there as well. They had great ult economy in that last fight to actually secure that last one. On top of that, with the Annihilation to just force Crazy Raccoon back. And then you had the Dragon Blade also coming out just to put the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it's been looking good from Crazy Raccoon, but I'm glad there's some bite still left in VP. It's been quite cool to see as well that we're having Max stay in. It seems like a much better tank matchup against Virtus.pro specifically. Junbin obviously want to play dive, Winston, ball, etc., but Max seems the perfect fit here for VP, for CR, sorry.
I think this is going to be a tough one, though, especially because you have already depleted a lot of the best maps that we would expect Virtus.pro to be able to take the edge in. And heading over to Esperança, you've already seen Vestola want to try to opt to go for this Ramatra. So a great ban coming out from Crazy Raccoon to make sure that Vestola cannot play that hero. Virtus.pro can kind of respond to this.
Yeah, this actually might be Crazy Raccoon subbing in Jumbin again. Banning the Ram here, yeah. And then on a ban, this feels like a Jumbin coming back in to me for Crazy Raccoon for Esperança. A bit more dive now.
I think so. I think this seems like they would want to lean a little bit more into the Winston in this particular scenario. But I feel like Vestola could still run something like a Mauga here. I think you could still just kind of bully your way past that Winston. But that on a ban is definitely targeted at Shu.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is do or die for both those teams, right? So they better came in prepping, making those bans and those map picks count.
Is that Jumbin? I think that is Jumbin. I didn't quite see him, but it might be him. Yeah, this makes so much sense. It's crazy, by the way, this is lower bracket. Virtus.pro, #1 seed out of the EMEA, and going 7-0 in regular season, and Crazy Raccoon. Yeah, okay, Jumbin in. Yeah, max out. Make these bans make perfect sense. Esperança, they want to go hard, they want to go fast.
Yeah, I think they could either actually go, probably Winston or Ball, I suppose, but I feel like Winston is definitely the more classic hero on this particular map. But we'll see.
We will indeed, as they are getting ready. It is match point for Crazy Raccoon. Can they keep themselves alive in the lower bracket? We'll find out in just a second. For all the action, I'm going to send it over to Matt and Mitch.
Both of our combatants here trying to target some of the better heroes for the other side strategy coming into this map. Ana, of course, taken away from Shu, and that pesky Ramatra from Vestola is off the table. So probably no surprise, Matt, here to see Winston versus D.Va. Crazy Raccoon and Virtus.pro, who are fighting to stay alive in this Champions Clash, are going to go at it here on Esperança.
I'm curious in your opinion, what do you think the bans favor? Because, like, VP's totally fine playing this D.Va. Like, you know, the Ramatra is something even in map #1 they really didn't seem comfortable, like, going up against that Winston with, right? Where getting the Ana out feels like it's a little bit more of a win here for VP.
Quite possibly. Put Shu, of course, on this Juno position, which is fine, but it's a little bit hard to kind of have Junbin get max value out of that orbital ray at the best of times. Heesung, though, of course, has to respect the D.Va. As soon as he pokes his head up, it's going to be whack-a-mole for Vestola.
I also don't feel as terrible about playing the Cassidy here because you have the D.Va, right? With that defense matrix, able to eat up some of the damage of the Borrow rockets that come down.
And you also don't have a lot to pair in terms of dive with Junbin, right? Crazy Raccoon are actually playing a poke comp with a dive tank, which is an interesting look. So it's tough to overwhelm the cast now.
Well, it was pretty awesome when you can combo like a bio grenade into the back line, right? And then Junbin follows it up, but not having that, you know, extra layer makes it a little bit difficult, right? You're relying on some of that poke damage coming down from that Bara, and I mean, there it is, taking out Jaewoo, but coming in and then following it up with that Winston.
I mean, yeah, it's funny. Crazy Raccoon have that dive sense, but they do want to play an extended neutral fight just to allow Heesung to get that incremental value over the course of the game. And there it is again. Virtus.pro, this has been dragged out here. Crazy Raccoon do want to start to turn this into some, push progress, and they've done so here. A stagger on the D.Va as well is going to be insult to injury for Virtus.pro, who lose the first fight.
It's like almost like a 2-minute neutral fight there mid-map.
Perfect for a Farrakhan.
Yeah, not a lot going on there, and eventually Heesung going to find that damage on the Bara.
It's Malcolm time, baby.
He's never truly dead.
So again, obviously, on this kind of map, when you get that 2 hearts perk, it's handy to have the extra regeneration when you're on the bot. There's a question, I think, of where the cage fight is used to try and catch Junbin out if you can. Here's the Deadeye for Shockwave. Respected, of course, by Crazy Raccoon. That's going to expire now. It's a concussive blast from me saying just to keep him honest. And here's that dive component. So you still got to respect the Winston if you're Cassidy, and Shockwave has got nowhere to go there.
It just still seems like this is kind of shades back to map 1. They just seem to have no answer or real threat against this Pharah. Like, that was kind of what ends up unraveling map #1 for VP. I mean, and at least here at the start of Esperança, it's clearly an issue.
It's hard to see where you would want to play Cassidy against Sojourn and Winston, right? Just in general. So I think the switch here for Shockwave is probably a bit better. can obviously harness that high ground control a little bit more with an extra bit of mobility available to you. Threat, of course, with overclock and an enemy Winston who wants to dive. And of course now, with this Malgan look, you have a great use case for that orbit array. Pulse bomb there for Jay, doesn't quite connect, and Heesang already deals with Pistola. That's tough for Gala, whose orbit array just doesn't have enough time to get going.
And I guess there's not really, like, could you match a Pharah, right? In theory, like, if you're VP. At least Heesang would have to respect the opposing Pharah, like, you know, putting down damage. It would give you some type of poke and response, but yeah, this has just been all Crazy Raccoon early on.
I feel like we so rarely see teams opt into Pharah mirrors because it can feel like a dice roll when you're trying to shoot that enemy Pharah quite often. It has a lot to do with, like, who has better position to play from.
So now they do actually end up matching the Pharah.
Okay. Jay was going to go for it. Does this come in a little bit too late? We've got to triple digits already for Crazy Raccoon, and oh, God! There goes Jay-Woo. Switch to the Pharah instantly. Nailed by a railgun. And they're going to keep the pressure up. You know, Crazy Raccoon, when they have that edge, they want to try and take a mile. And this Pharah has been electric for Heesang. Just what Crazy Raccoon needed to secure what could be a very quick map.
And Jay was probably like, well, why can't Shockwave do that? He's like, I go on Pharah, I turn the corner, and I just get domed by the Sojourn on the opposite side.
It's like that. We're going to have a very quick Esperança at this rate, folks. Less than 5 minutes elapsed and already Crazy Raccoon are knocking on the doors. Someone's turned up the heat here and the Polar Bears just can't hang. Pistola going to fall now into a primal race for Junbin. It's a very sad looking rally after a very sad looking orbit array for Virtus.pro. Desperately they're trying to dig their heels in here in Hangzhou, and their final moments are now being shown for all to see. Pistola steps up here with a cardiac overdrive, but make it cardiac arrest. And Virtus.pro have been vanquished, and Crazy Raccoon, chip on their shoulder the size of South Dakota, have got more work to do in this lower bracket.
But it just felt wrong, I think, for Crazy Raccoon to go home this early in the tournament. This is a team that we fully expect to go deep into this event, into play tomorrow. And VP just happens to be in their way, on their path to do so. And I think VP, you'll look back at this series and the Circuit Royale, like, if you win that, right, look, you give yourself at least a 5th gamer here, potentially.
And look, Virtus.pro, incredible at what they do, right? Playing these rush comps, playing these poke styles.
Yeah.
And this is a map pool that's actually lends itself to that pretty
decent,
well.
yeah.
There's no Gibraltar here. And Numbani, for example, these maps that are quite often played by Dive, but they were really exposed, I think, for their lack of flexibility and coverage over the different styles, whereas Crazy Raccoon have shown they can play that dive look. If they get dragged onto a Circuit Royale, like you mentioned, they can play Ramatra. Sigma looks, these guys have got the depth to get them over this hurdle.
It's also something that we wondered about with VP throughout Stage 1, right? We know they're extremely good at these styles of play, but when it comes to dive and other different types of things with that international competition, are they going to be able to come up with something? Are they going to be able to have a look? Are they going to be able to match it? And it proves they're not able to do so, at least here at this event.
The game's changed. It's no good just to pick the strongest meta comp and slam that scrim after scrim, especially now in a hero ban meta. A lot to break down here, but of course the headlines that Crazy Raccoon will be advancing and maybe a chance to take on their regional foes in this lower bracket. We'll see how things pan out. Let's head to the desk here to break down this game. Very quick map number 4.